Welcome to the first episode of the RiftSlop podcast. I'm your host, David, also known as Olgul, joined by my co-host, Sammy.
What up?
Today we're going to be going over a lot of fun and exciting news. We got a ban list, we got the Vendetta patch notes rules that have come out. But before we get into that, let's tell you a little bit about ourselves. My name is David. I am a level 1 judge. I've mostly been playing card games since about 2014 or so. Mostly just casual, sometimes a little competitive, never got too deep into it. Just really excited to keep learning and hopefully get better at Riftbound and become a better judge overall. What about you, Sam? You want to take it away?
Yeah, I've been playing competitive TCGs since 2013, and I topped a few Vanguard regionals and Vanguard ARG nationals around 2016, 2017, and yeah, hoping to have a lot of fun competing in Riftbound.
Let's get into, well, we got a couple things to go over. Starting off with the July ban list updates. And before we kind of get into it, we might have taken, there might have been a little peeks, but beforehand, before we ultimately take a look and just kind of read the reasoning, what cards were you thinking were going to get banned? What were you hoping for?
Oh, sure.
Where were you at with the bans before today?
I was like, okay, they're gonna hit Stellacorn Herder, because that card is disgusting in Akali. I'm gonna be playing Akali in Vendetta, guys. So I've been testing the shit out of it.
Yeah.
That card is nasty.
Even in Aurelia, it was doing crazy work too. So
Yeah, even in Aurelia.
prior.
We were. I was thinking like maybe one of the purple bounce spells gets hit, like
Okay, like
Starcrossed or
Starcross.
Rebuke,
Mm.
because we have like that Gust spell now. That's like, hey, if it's 3 or less, do this. If it's over 3, do this.
You,
So it's like just a really good one because with like Starcrossed, you can like increase your might to get around it, or
or with
like.
Gust, you mean?
Oh, sorry, with Gust.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
with Gust.
With Gust,
And
you
then the
can
other
like
one is
increase.
the new one is like the Wind of something. We'll put it up.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, it's
I'll put
like
it
if
up
it's 3 or
afterwards.
less, bounce it. If it's over, banish it.
Banish
Oh, like,
it.
that
Yeah,
card's
yeah,
nasty. Like, so yeah, I
yeah.
was thinking like that's where I was at with the bans. I was not expecting what we got. The ban list was pretty
Okay, yeah,
concise.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think yeah, with the ban list myself, I definitely agree on the Celicorn. I think Celicorn has been one that many people have been going like this probably needs to get banned because of how much of value it could potentially get you.
yeah,
And I know people were assuming with some of the reveals that happened, it's that Poro that also draws you cards now in the
yeah,
greens, in the green spells. I would have agreed if that card gets banned or was banned. We knew the Stealthy Pursuer because they announced it a little early
right.
on that one. And then Starcrossed, I did feel like that was the way to nerf Fizz if you
Yeah,
wanted to nerf Fizz. Because I think like Fizz is a really strong card, but I think Fizz is ultimately as strong as the value that it can get you. Right?
yeah,
So like I think
totally.
you targeting the cards that Fizz can net you allows you to still play Fizz, but reducing the pool of the really broken stuff that he can grab you back, right?
Yeah,
So that makes sense. I know people wanted Aurora ban, but I think at this point, with all the reveals, we know there's way too much gear hate to really deal with it. And I really didn't expect it
I
to
didn't
like
either.
go through. There's a fly messing with me, but but yeah, I didn't really expect it to go through as a ban.
Yeah,
I
something you and
think
I talk about a lot is
yeah,
how Aurora doesn't top, or like doesn't win tournaments, I should say.
right,
Like that, and I think that's the biggest factor, right? When they're looking at the bans, they're going, what's problematic? What could we see being problematic? What's being abused? And like that's kind of like how they figure out what they're gonna ban. And like Aurora, no matter how annoying it is for the newer players, um, I think the veteran players would agree with me when I say like there are ways to play around it. There's plenty of gear hate in the game, and you just have to be preparing for it um, up until they drop it.
right, exactly. Yeah, I think like yeah, I think one of the biggest things that was going against Aurora, which I wouldn't be if it was to be banned, I wouldn't be surprised if this was the reason why, is that it homogenized the deck building for orange decks.
Yeah.
Like when Unleashed first came out, everybody was like, if you're an orange and you can't compete with purple or like any of the other colors that are really good right now, just build Aurora. It's gonna be solid. The first I think like the first RQ or so before people like really figured out decks for other orange decks, like everybody was just running a version of Aurora, Kha'Zix Aurora, like Yi Aurora, Poppy Aurora, like everything else. Like that makes, if that stuck around for the entirety of Unleashed and it ended up with all those decks being like, yeah, this is the best version of the deck, I would have assumed that I would have seen Aurora being banned, but it didn't, right? The only real Aurora decks that stuck around were like Poppy, Sivir, MF, and like Volley, right? That were relatively relevant. And even then, out of those two, Sivir was the most relevant, and I think MF was like right behind it, and then like everybody else. But like I think like it didn't stick, right? So yeah. I do think like the overall tournament results and just like Aurora being annoying to play with or against is kind of like rough, but ultimately I think they you know it's workable. It works. You can work around it, and who knows, maybe depending on how, you know, something like Jace Aurora comes out, maybe if that ends up being too broken, it'll be banned down the line. That is a card that I could see being banned if once it takes that extra step forward. It just needs like one or two more things for it to magically be broken and like even more broken than it already is. Yeah, I've been hearing all these turn 2 Aurora stuff, and if that ends up being as oppressive as it sounds, I could imagine that next set we're going to see an Aurora ban. But for now, and in that case, you know, it shows us that I guess it's probably not going to be banned here. But let's get into the July ban list going into Vendetta. We also got some rule stuff that we're going to go over after. I know I mentioned that a little earlier. So let's get started with the July ban list. We're announcing new bans for Standard as well as the creation of a constructed 2v2 ban list. That's actually pretty hype. I think 2v2 is from mostly watching it. I haven't played it too much, but mostly watching 2v2, I think it's pretty hype. I think it's a pretty sick game mode. So let's take a look. We know Stealthy Pursuer. So the following division made it the standard ban. Cards, we have Stealthy Pursuer. We have two battlefields. We have the Arena's Greatest and Aspirant's Climb. I know these were ones that people were talking about because of how relevant they are in like every deck and how much it sort of makes for non-games sometimes.
I would say during our skirmish, I could tell you Arena's Greatest won me so many games. It probably won me almost every game I used it.
Yes, I can see how that happens. Like you just immediately go ahead and because you're probably the faster deck because you were on Diana, right? You just kind of you accelerate. You have to like you get the chance to accelerate so fast compared to like somebody else that like it makes it so that you threaten game much earlier, sometimes like 2 turns earlier or something like that, which I can agree with. I'm surprised they hit it. Like I'm surprised they hit it because I think the idea of Arena's Greatest being essentially somewhat balanced by the existence of Aspirant's Climb because they're kind of the great opposite of each other, right? Like I felt like something like that. Like, I felt like that would have been their reasoning to not ban it, but it makes total sense. Aspirant's Climb on the other one, that's the one I use the most because of the decks I've played, mostly. And, like, it's... Honestly, yeah, it just made it... It made it so that I didn't feel like I needed to play the game until much later.
Yeah.
Like, there were so many times where I was playing the game, and because I was in Aspirants, I'm like, yeah, I could get rid of 4 points and not be worried. Like I could let them get to 6, you know?
Yeah.
It's like I just had no worries at all.
I like their reasoning for why they banned aspirants though.
Okay.
No, I think
Yeah, we'll get to that right in a sec here. I think they're showing the 2v2 ban parts first. Or they're showing the 2v2, so let's look at today. 2v2 constructed. With today's bans, we are introducing a 2v2 ban list. It's comprised of the entirety of the entirety of standard ban list plus the following. Okay, so everything that's banned in standard is banned in 2v2s with the addition of the Master Yi Wuju Blazeman. That is the PG Proving Grounds.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah, so the Proving Grounds Master Yi, I mean, makes sense. People have been saying Master Yi Yasuo has been running the format for the most part, and I'm honestly just not surprised.
Yeah, the I think they quoted like the stats.
The stats.
That Master Yi provides is like insane.
Okay, yeah, and then we'll get to see that deeper in a sec. So, getting into the discussion of the ban philosophy, as we've discussed previously regarding our ban philosophy, there are 3 questions we ask ourselves when considering whether to ban a card. Is this card overrepresented in an unhealthy way? Are the problems with this card likely to get better or worse over time? Does this card promote unhealthy play patterns? And I think that third one was a big reason that people were citing Aurora for. Anyway, continuing. Yeah. For today's ban announcement, you can kind of categorize each of these bans as originating from a different one of these questions. Stealthy Pursuer. For Stealthy Pursuer, when we ask if this card's problem will get worse over time, the answer has been a resounding yes. We shared our intent to ban this card early in Vendetta's preview season, as many in the community had already identified a potential infinite combo involving it. Eye of the Herald and Renata Glask. Industrialist. This has the potential to create infinite recruits as early as turn 3. Wow, it was that fast, with only small windows for interaction. Internal testing has shown that even though the combo is disruptible, it is consistent enough that it becomes a harsh check on the metagame and would lead to very polarizing games where you just get to turn 3 and ask your opponent, do you have it? That's true.
Wow.
I completely agree. As someone who played modern Magic in like 2014 or so, that's how the game felt sometimes. You were going against like certain combos where I think the closest thing to this is probably like a Splinter Twin combo at the time, for people who know. It was literally just like, by the time you got to like turn 3 or 4 or something like that, maybe I'm forgetting the exact turn, but by that point, if you were playing against the deck, you can literally just go, do you have the combo? And it was just a matter of yes or no, and it was just like, okay, let's go game 2. Like, let's go game 2, let's go game 3. And I could definitely get that, especially when it's so early into the game itself. I can understand why that's something you want to avoid in general, especially if that's just a game you want to make. Like, because they did say they don't mind infinite combos, but I get it if they're trying to like stop it at a certain point, because turn 3 is so fast in this game.
You literally have time to do nothing.
You speed run the first 2 turns basically, if we're being honest. But yeah, that's very reasonable, and I don't think anybody's surprised that this got banned. I know we've talked about in the past, I think with Stealthy Pursuer getting banned, it makes sense out of all of the cards that are being all the cards in the combo, right? Because Eye of the Herald is being played in Azir, and then maybe some of the other decks. I'm not too sure if anything else, but I think I know Azir is for sure playing it. And then Renata Glass, this is the yellow one. I don't think it does really see play, and I think banning that doesn't really stop the combo, because the combo will still exist. It just makes it so that your units aren't ready. But yeah, any other thoughts on Stealthy Pursuer?
No, I think I think we just talked about like out of the 3 pieces, like it is the one to be hit. I mean, Glass doesn't get played, and Eye of Herald gets a little play in Azir, so it was the obvious choice, I think.
For sure, I definitely agree. Let's get to the battlefield stuff. These are probably the biggest news out of the bans, if I'm being honest, because these were seen everywhere. For the Arena's Greatest and Esper's Climb, these battlefields have been very popular, but not necessarily to the extent that we would feel the need to act. However, they also have impacted the structure of competitive play in an unhealthy way. We feel the game will be stronger without them. For many decks, using one of these point battlefields has become the de facto play in game 2 or 3, once you know whether you're going first or second. The Arena's Greatest is particularly powerful when going first, and gives the first player an advantage that we don't think it's healthy to reinforce with such consistency. For Aspirant's Climb, adding the extra point as the additional negative impact of increasing round length and making it take longer to execute rounds in a tournament sitting. Okay. Removing these two battlefields will increase diversity of battlefields played and make player choices less deterministic on being first or second. That's fair. I think that's really good. That's like a really good reasoning behind these bans for sure. I think.
Yeah, we often talk about how Riftbound tournaments take too long. So like when they were
Hmm,
like Aspen's climb just makes the round length way too long. I'm like, okay, I get it.
yeah.
And I totally agree with what they're saying with Arena's Greatest. 9 times out of 10, I was just going into it game two,
Hmm,
because I knew the game plan when I was running that was just go fast. Like,
right.
so like I get it.
Yeah, I think the arena's greatest. You almost never really want to go game one. I think
Yeah, I agree.
so. Like it makes sense for sure because I think these. I think something else that they don't really talk about, or they kind of talk about it, but like I would love to see if there was some sort of stat that said like how many games were won. Obviously, it's like an impossible stat, but like how
Yeah.
many games at an RQ were won for the person that went arena's greatest, and how many games were won for the person that went Asprin's climb. Because I feel like when you go those battlefields, that's essentially the like if you're going game two or game three, even those are essentially your like this is my guaranteed win slot.
Yeah, yeah, it's like I'm prepared for this game. It's going in my favor. Like, yeah, totally.
Yeah, like this battlefield is gonna win the game alone. And
Yeah,
I think like that's one of the also like big aspects of these two. um it is interesting that the biggest thing about Asper's time that they felt was the point for them to ban was the increased round length. It has been, like we said, it's been talked about many times how long these tournaments are, and I know a lot of the players that are competing at RQs and stuff have always talked about how long these these
yeah.
games have been. Out of the two, though, I feel like Aspirant's Climb is the biggest hit to its deck to its decks than the Arena's greatest, low key. Because
I
as
think.
like I feel like
Mhm.
Asriel can't stall. Aurora gets less games where it can like it can ramp up to it almost, right? Like you're pushing the boundary of losing with Aurora now a little less comfortably than you were previously now that you're gone with Aspirant's Climb. And then
Yeah, I feel like Aspen's Climb is like a quiet little nerf to Aurora, but not quite because like
hmm,
other decks do use it, but like you're right, like Aurora probably uses it the most.
yeah, like I think like the slower decks in general get pretty hit by the Aspirant's Climb because now they're like well, that was my artificial stall, essentially. That is a card that stalled the game where I didn't need to do anything in order for it to stall the game for me, to where I can go critical mass and just like make sure you don't play the game, right? But now it's like, oh, you're going to be getting close to game point a lot closer every single game we play in in this best of, which is
Yeah.
which is a little scary. I think the arena's greatest for like aggro decks and just the fast decks in general, where it was almost a win more. It was a guarantee um more so than like I needed to win the game. It was just like this is gonna guarantee me the game, and then in a game where both people are going to 8 without Aspirant's Climb or anything, it's like I can probably outpace them anyway. Like at least for the
Yeah.
fast decks.
Yeah, I think the Arena's Greatest was probably a good hit. I'm gonna miss
Mhm.
it.
Yeah,
I think it was a good hit. Yeah.
yeah. I think both were good hits for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just interested to see how some of these slow decks end up feeling. Because
Without that,
yeah, without the stall of aspirants, because like
you,
it
you
just
still have
made
the channel, the a conquer here, um, D ramp one, and you still have
yeah
the ice one.
you still have the negative ones. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I'd assume Aspirin's Climb probably becomes the is it Frozen Monument, the one that says you can't score for the first for the first three
Yeah,
turns?
I assume most slow lists are running that already. Like I think in a Aurora list, for example, where they're running that, D-Ramp 1 and Aspens, you could replace Aspens with like another negative like Minefield or something. Like just something they don't want to go into.
Yeah, possibly. Minefield might be a little scary this with Vendetta coming in though, with all the burn stuff happening.
That's fair. And
Because
flow, yeah.
it might feed your opponents. But yeah, I'd be interested what ends up taking the slots for these. But any other thoughts on the battlefields before we move on to the 2v2 talk?
No, I think we covered it.
All right, perfect. All right, so getting to the Wuju Bladesman. We all know what it does. We always forget in the middle of the game, though. While a friendly unit defends alone, it gets +2 defense, which at that point is insane in 2v2s, because in 2v2s, your teammates' creatures are friendly units. So the Master Yi is giving free +2s to everybody. But let's take a look at why they're banning the Master Yi. Lastly, we have Master Yi Wuju Blazeman, who is only being banned in Constructed 2v2. While the Proving Grounds Master Yi has solidly proven himself as a 1v1 competitor, his legend has been consistently overshadowing other options in 2v2 to the detriment of that format. Since the defensive bonus extends to both you and your ally, he is providing far more stats from the start of the game than are healthy. As we have been experimenting with 2v2 as a competitive format, we've already seen a huge overrepresentation of Master Yi Wuju Bladesman among top teams, and we think this ban is necessary for the health of the 2v2 constructed format. Can I just say, if you're gonna tell me there's a huge overrepresentation of a legend, give me the number. Give me the number. I want to see the number.
That's fair.
I want to see the number.
Fair.
I want to know. Give me the stats. Give me the stats. Give me the stats.
Yeah, if you have the stats right, you know we like stats.
Give me
the numbers.
give us the numbers. Give us the numbers. I don't like math, but I like the numbers. But anyway, I think it makes sense totally across the board. Like your early dudes are +2 stronger every single time. The Master Yi combo with Yasuo just felt looked oppressive, basically. It looked pretty hard to deal with. Again, I don't know too much of the 2v2 format outside of just the occasional, peek into it from watching it. So I can't say too much about like how this will actually like warp the meta there, but like I think if it's enough to make it so that people are playing a bunch of other stuff, I think it's great. I think it's for the sake of the diversity of that format. I think it's fine. I think it's even though I because this also kind of attaches itself to Aurora, is even though I like Aurora, I don't like when there's only one thing to go. I like the diversity, right? So if Master Yi was to that point where it's like everybody's just running Master Yi plus something, or Master Yi plus Yasuo, then like, yeah, definitely get it out of here. Let people play other decks. Let people experiment with more 2v2 stuff so that they don't have to worry about, does this deck lose to Master Yi and Yasuo, right?
Yeah, totally. If you have to build against like that matchup like 100% of the time, like that's where you have to take action.
Yeah, I completely agree. Are there any other thoughts that you might have on the ban list so far?
Glad they didn't ban him from regular constructed. Because
I
when I first read it, I was like, they're banning the what now with the who? I was like,
True. I
yeah.
think they didn't ban. So I think they didn't ban Master Yi in 1v1s because, granted, everybody has been saying how close the meta is in with the last set. Who knows how that will be going into Vendetta? But I think the biggest reason is that Master Yi has been pseudo rotated out. You can't meddle with it anymore, right? So you can't go for best ofs and get the medal for Master Yi. So it's almost, in terms of like EV or like money value that you can get out of playing it, if you're playing Master Yi, it's because you either want like a high placing, so like you want like invites, so you want to try to get like top, I think top 64 is is prizing for like invitations and stuff. So like I think if you want to secure placing somewhere, and you need like points for something, I can understand going Master Yi because it's such a solid list, right? And people are saying that it might get even better with Vendetta, surprisingly. But other than that, like there's effectively no value in playing Master Yi at a RQ outside of placements, right? Because outside of that, where's the money?
Yeah.
Right.
No,
With best ofs being such a like a big thing in this game, and it mattering for prize money, then like I don't see people playing it as much unless again they need placing.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
But yeah, I mean I think the bans are pretty solid. I wish they did a little more. I wish they hit like one or two more cards.
Like actual cards, not battlefields.
Like actual
Yeah.
cards, yeah, like not battlefields. And honestly, I kind of wish they unbanned some stuff.
Oh yeah.
I would have loved to see
Draven.
Yeah, I would have loved to see an unban from Draven just to see what kind of mess we get into.
Yeah.
I don't like because there's some debate that like, oh, that card is still so busted. If it came back, we'd be in the Draven meta again. And then other people are saying like, nah, we've grown past the need for that card. We've grown past that power level, which to be honest, I didn't play when it was Draven meta, so I don't know how oppressive that card actually was.
Yeah.
It sounds busted, but I want to see it.
If I could pick one card from the unban, I would love for them to unban Called Shot.
They're never gonna do called.
That card is the reason I started playing Riftbound.
That's
That card is
crazy.
nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. That card is a little too nuts. I don't think they'll ever unban that thing.
I know. You know me, I'm an Echo guy.
That's true. He is on the art. That's true. Purely for art purposes, yeah. Unban it for my boy. Unban it for my boy. But let's move on to the next segment here. We got the patch notes coming in for the Vendetta stuff. Let me accept these terms of services. But the core rules have been updated. So let's take a look at what's new, what's changed. I think we got some early errata stuff earlier today that wasn't supposed to go out. So we did get a little peek into that. I don't know if they'll mention that here, but let's look at the patch notes. So welcome to the patch notes for Riftbound Vendetta. Included in today's update are the new rules required to play with the mechanics included in Vendetta set, as well as fixes to many logical and procedural errors. Our first goal for this rules update is primarily to support the new cards in Vendetta when it releases to the English and Chinese audience simultaneously. Compared to the Unleashed rules update, we're focusing more of our energy on the new rules and systems for Vendetta than updates and changes to the overall mechanics of the game. We still have numerous bug fixes and areas of the rules that have been clarified and improved, but it is a smaller focus than it was in the Unleashed rules update. That's interesting for sure, because there was a lot of weird stuff with Unleashed that was getting clarified, and I mean, I think they did a pretty good job of clarifying it this time. But we'll see where that goes. Our second goal is to share the reasoning behind the changes we've made, so that you can understand why these changes are necessary and what cards or functions they support. Not all of the rules that have been changed are included in this document, but the changes and updates that were significant and merited deeper explanation to the community are ones we've elected to explain here. Additionally, all the changes described in the Unleashed FAQ have been reproduced in the core rules document and have been included here for completeness. Awesome. We're releasing this rules update slightly early compared to our previous cadence. We hear player feedback from the updates which came with Unleashed and are adjusting our timing accordingly. This gives judges and players plenty of time to read any relevant rules before our first pre-Rift events. The Vendetta rules update will be effective as of July 24th, 2026. So that's next weekend. Next week. Yeah. Let's be real. It's going as of now. People are gonna be playing with this with this set of rules. Anyway, with that said,
gotta test.
Yeah, for sure. But with that said, let's look at the rules changes we have in store for Vendetta. Okay, so they got some Master of Shadows, Zed, and then the Questionable Tome. Vendetta Edition Empower, Empowered, Disempower. Empower is the 10th pole mechanic of Vendetta. Units, gear, and legends can be empowered and disempowered. Empowered is a status that lasts indefinitely until the card leaves the board or is disempowered. The Empower status does nothing on its own, but it can be referenced by other effects. Many cards in this set have the Empowered keyword. This is an activated ability with an associated cost. You may pay the cost and your unit will become empowered. You can only activate this ability if the unit isn't already empowered. If a card has an empowered ability, it is likely also has an empowered ability. This is the dependent keyword whose condition is the card having the empowered state. While the card is empowered, you get the extra effect. Some effects may also instruct the player to disempower the card as an instruction or a cost. Disempowering card is the same thing as removing the empower status from it. You can't disempower something that isn't empowered.
So
New rules, this stuff, all this stuff is added.
Based on that, we can react to
To the
somebody
empowerment.
paying the cost. Yeah.
Right. It does. Yeah, because it's an activated ability, you definitely can.
Right.
This is how in my mind I've been thinking about it, because it would be kind of crazy not to be able to respond to it.
Right. Well, I haven't had it hasn't come up in testing.
It hasn't come up yet. Right.
No one has reacted to it.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, if I'm playing against Akali and I'm playing my Diana, I'm gusting that Akali every time before it gets empowered. Red Akali.
If it's in a battlefield.
Yeah. Right. Of course.
Right. Yeah. Or like star crossing it or something. Yeah. But I think that's how I've been thinking about it in my brain. I haven't done as much play testing as you, of course, though, so it hasn't really come up in my end. I've wanted to play test, but I've been waiting for paper.
Yeah.
Like there's
also Power World update.
Power World update. You got me. No. No, but the I think the empowered stuff is interesting. We had a discussion about it in our Discord with all the dudes, talking about are we going to be able to respond to it? What's the idea behind it? I think we landed that we were most likely going to be able to respond to it, but we weren't sure, and we were ultimately going to have to wait for this article to come out to essentially make it more obvious. But it does, since it's an activated ability, it does seem like we are able to respond to something being empowered, so we could hopefully stop it. Moving on though, the flow mechanic. The second key mechanic in Vendetta builds on the concept of using abilities quickly in succession by allowing players to play spells from their trash. The mechanic is the flow keyword. Flow is a keyword that appears on spells. It is a permission and alternate cost. By playing a spell for its flow cost, you can play it from the trash and then banish it, one and done. Cards with flow also have a nifty symbol on their text box to indicate that they have a function from your trash. This symbol will be appearing on more cards in the future when we want players to know they should pay attention to the cards in the trash. That's good. I like that. It makes searching graveyards a little easier.
They didn't say though. Remember, this came up in discussion about
the defy.
Yes, is it now the flow cost, or are we still treating it as the printed?
I do wonder because now you're playing it for its alternate cost.
I feel like it has to factor that in.
Which I wonder if that is something I might have to dig into. Yeah. I'm sure it's probably going to come up at some point though, because for people who aren't I read the rules and stuff, and I still off the top of my head don't really know how this is going to work. And I could only imagine there are people who still think you can defy falling star. So this is gonna cause a bit of a mess. But
I just wanted to defy punch.
We'll have to see.
Riot, listen to me. I just wanted to defy punch.
Or defy punch first, exactly.
Please, Riot.
exactly. Well, play Mel. You can defy punch first.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to the next mechanic. We got burn. Speaking of trash shenanigans, one of the other major mechanics in Vendetta allows us to take cards directly from our main deck and put them in the trash. That is the burn keyword. To burn X, a player takes X cards from the top of their main deck and puts them into their trash. Cards can trigger when burned or when you burn a card, and effects can count the number of cards burned in a turn. Burning cards can bring you closer to burning out, but it can also add valuable float cards into your trash. Danger and
Did
go
they
value
always
hand in hand.
did they always call decking out burning out, or is that because of is that like a pun on burn?
I wonder. I
Yeah.
don't know. I
That's
I
kind of
actually don't
funny.
know. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, I don't really know.
Good job, Riot. I like that.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
Going with that. Interesting that it. I mean, burn is pretty self-explanatory. I don't feel like they needed to really go
Yeah.
that deep
It's a
into
mill.
into
Yeah.
what happens, but yeah. We have skip. For the first time, a card has been printed that allows a player to skip part of their turn. Oh, okay. In order to support that functionality, we've added a new action, skip. Skip is a replacement effect that replaces the named event or procedure of the turn with nothing. Anything that will occur as a result of that event or procedure of the turn doesn't happen instead. Skip action added. Okay, that's cool.
We haven't seen any skip cards yet, right? Unless I
It's
missed it.
I believe it's endless riches. It's like skip your I believe it's a skip your draw phase or skip your beginning
Oh,
phase, and then
yes,
you can play
yes,
cards
yes.
from your graveyard, I think.
Okay, got it. Yep. Yeah, we were cooking on Endless Riches deck. Um, Bryce had a lot of interest in this card.
Right. Yeah, I know he was talking to me about it. That'd be cool. That'd be cool to see. Um, like I with the Spiderling,
Yeah.
I was thinking Loki, Endless Riches, Spiderling, like Zed stuff.
Oh, cool. Okay, I
But
like that.
I haven't really gotten a chance to start really putting cards together and trying to. I just know Spiderlings and Endless
Interesting.
Riches
Yeah.
because you
I
can
was
play them
yapping.
straight from the grave.
Yeah, I was yapping to him about Endless Riches Kaisa or Endless Riches Jinx.
Interesting. Okay.
Um, because
Endless
like
Riches Jinx would be interesting. Yeah.
yeah, because it would get you that draw that you're skipping. So yeah.
It. Wait. Actually, maybe nah. When the it depends on when things
When it
trigger.
procs.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it depends on when it's triggered, but it probably does. It probably does.
Yeah.
I forget how Jinx is worded specifically, but
Yeah.
it might. Um, Ignoring effects. A new class of effect has been added in Vendetta, the ability to ignore certain abilities or effects. Fortunately, the machinery of inactive text allows us to cleanly manage how these effects operate, and they should be fairly intuitive to players. Ignoring effects have been added. What's the
So
ignore?
we saw that with list. Oh, ignoring effects. New class.
Okay. Yeah, well, that what card ignores or what card are they referencing?
Let's see. Ignore. Uh, let's see here. It's Dune Surfer. You ignore tank while assigning combat damage.
Oh,
Um, Mel ignore deflect when paying spell costs.
I see.
Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Right. Okay, so you just yeah, so those keywords just mean nothing when you do the thing. Right.
exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Untargetability. In Unleashed, we had one new card that could make a card unable to be chosen by enemy spells or abilities based on a condition. In Vendetta, we are getting several new such effects, and it is important for us to clarify how the set of abilities functions. We say that a unit with this property is untargetable. If a unit becomes untargetable after a spell or ability has already targeted the unit, that spell or ability will miss target on resolution. Any instructions related to that unit will be ignored. This is the same principle as a unit at the battlefield being targeted by Void Seeker and being moved to a base in reaction speed to the spell. When Void Seeker resolves, any instructions related to that unit will be ignored because it is no longer at a battlefield as required by Void Seeker. Similarly, any instructions related to untargetability or to the untargetable unit will be ignored because it too isn't a legal target anymore. I see. That's
Pretty self-explanatory.
yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I think at the start people were a little confused by the whole move my thing out of the battlefield. Now it's not. Now it's not a valid target.
Yeah, we've had a
But
whole like rotation to like get used to it.
But yeah, I think like at this point, people are used to the concept of things becoming illegal targets and the card essentially fizzling.
Yeah.
Um, Vendetta support making new choices. We have our second card that allows a player to make new choices for a spell on the chain. To support Mystic Reversal and this new spell, we've added rules for making new choices that will clarify the timing, legality, and nature of the choices allowed to be remade. Okay. Was this revealed previously? While you control this
I
battlefield, the first friendly gear activated ability each turn costs one less. Oh, okay.
well,
Oh,
that's pretty self.
this isn't relevant to. Okay, for some reason I thought this was relevant to to the making new choices thing. I was like, how? Okay, let's look
Oh,
at
that
the.
was the blurb. Okay, so now we're moving on. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Okay.
would
Yeah.
have
I
loved
mean,
more Riot. I would have loved
yeah. I
more
mean,
there.
making new choices makes sense. To me, because in Magic there's a few cards that do that. So there's like
Okay.
Commandeer. There's like Commandeer is the only one that's coming to mind right now, but there's a
Yeah.
couple. There's like there's a couple cards that essentially just say yoink, your spell is mine now, and I
Gain
get to make
control of the spell.
yeah, I get to make the choices.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. Gain
Yeah,
control of the spell, make a new choice for it. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It seems pretty easy to understand. I think
Yeah.
the weirdest thing is going to be timing. In terms
Yeah.
of like, can you now respond to like your own spell or something like that? Probably people are going to start asking, which I think even then I think you can, like,
I would
because if you're
say so. If I have played a, let's just say a falling star, and my opponent responded with Mystic Reversal to gain control of the spell, I would say unless I respond to Mystic Reversal, then I can't respond to Falling Star because Mystic Reversal is on top of the stack, and once we've
right.
decided this is resolving, the whole stack is resolving.
I think there was a way to like weave in a spell somewhere in between there. I don't remember exactly though.
Okay.
But I think there was a way. I could be completely wrong and misremembering and thinking wrong card game stuff, but it's one of those things. I'll have to look at the exact ruling once they actually put it up. So
Yeah.
um, I'd be obviously interested in reading the exact terminology on everything. But let's move on to the Piltover Forge. While you control this battlefield, the first friendly gear activated ability each turn costs one less. I think this is pretty solid for some things that
Yeah.
initially just cost one to do it in the first place. So that'd be cool to see if that's actually being used. If not, but it might be too.
I could see Ezreal play it.
Might be too.
You don't think Ezreal plays it?
Probably not, because the gears it currently uses don't cost mana to or energy to really play it. Because I think the only one is. How am I forgetting what the list does? But I think no,
Yeah,
I don't
list
think
you
I
just
don't.
tap.
I think the
Yeah.
list you just tap it. Yeah, you just exhaust it.
Oh,
Back
activated ability. I see.
backpack you just tap it, and
Probably Jace.
then
This is probably specifically
it's
Jace
probably
support
yeah,
then.
it's probably more Jace thing than like an Azrael thing.
Yeah.
But activated ability terminology. As a Vendetta, we're shifting towards a new terminology for activated abilities in card text. On cards in previous sets, we've used the term used to refer to activating an activated ability, which has led to some confusion over how it functions differently than playing a card. With Vendetta, we're moving to the word play to refer to the act of activating an ability in card text. The core rules document has been updated to refer to both uses of the term when discussing activated abilities. Use
Good.
and play supported for activated abilities. Okay.
Good, because before they had like 7 different versions of play, and we were sitting here like, okay, so which
So
version of play is
what
this?
does it mean? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, this is a good update, Riot. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, I wonder what this adds fully.
I think it
But
just clarifies stuff. I don't know if
yeah.
it adds anything, but yeah.
And then let's move to cards with multiple types. With the release of Vendetta, Riftbound has its first card with multiple card types. We've added rules that clarify how cards with multiple types function. And then we have Vendetta support for replacement effects and combat damage. Interesting. Prevent being clarified in the Unleashed rules update has set the stage for more and more instances of it appearing on cards. As Prevent is becoming more prevalent, we've taken another look at how replacement effects interact with combat damage assignment. It was strange that Prevent as a replacement effect could modify how combat damage is assigned, while any other replacement effect that interacts with damage only applied at the moment that damage was dealt. Given how strict our combat damage assignment rules have to be, this led to very strange situations. We've done the technical work to ensure that we align how all replacement effects that interact with damage function during combat damage assignment. Now, any replacement effect that would modify damage dealt to units during the combat damage is applied to combat damage assignment instead. We've also updated the rules for how combat damage is assigned to remove inconsistencies this would cause. We'll note that this means combat damage assignment when a unit has a replacement effect that increases damage like Lotus Trap will become slightly more complicated, as players must incorporate those replacement effects into their assignment calculations. We think that slightly added complexity will be worth the increased intuitiveness of these effects having the same timing. When assigning damage during the combat damage step, replacement effects that would apply to the resulting damage are considered to apply to the assignment instead. Interesting.
Computa, what does that mean?
So, I believe what this means is that before you would go, I'm gonna assign. So let's say Lotus Trap, which doubles the damage, right? I believe before what would happen was I'm going to assign, let's say I'm dealing 4 damage. I'm gonna assign 4 damage, and then that's gonna get multiplied.
Right. Proc Lotus Trap.
Now it's I'm gonna assign 8 damage.
Okay.
I think. That's my understanding of it. When assigning damage during the combat damage step, replacement effects that would apply to the resulting damage are considered to apply to the assignment instead. Yeah. Because you do it, you take into the account how much you're. I think that's kind of how we played it for the most part anyway.
Right.
But
I can't think of.
But I think
I don't know why this is relevant, but
I think this is relevant because of the way
I guess I would have to see those strange interactions they're talking about.
yeah, I think I think this is relevant because of when you're trying to assign damage to multiple things.
Okay.
Because now it's like because now I guess the weird interactions are going to be like, I wonder what happens when because you're assigning the damage now before or like because the replacement effects are being applied on the assignment instead, you're technically assigning 8 damage to a unit if you're killing it with Lotus, but you're not assigning 8 damage to the board because the rest of the units aren't hit by Lotus Trap.
Okay.
Which I think that's where they're saying it's going to be a weird interaction.
Right, so like stuff that hits multiple units, like you have to pick now, basically. Like, hey, we're gonna increase the damage to this unit instead of all of them.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, I'm interested to read the exact, like, a little bit more of an explanation on this because we've done technical work to ensure that aligned how all replacement effects that interact with damage function during combat damage assignment. Now, any replacement effect that would modify damage dealt to units during combat damage is applied to the combat damage assignment instead. We've also
Yeah, the way I hear that is when after you assign your targets, then you can assign where that effect goes.
Interesting. Replacement effect that would modify damage dealt. Yeah, I guess if it just dealt like deal it, yeah, if essentially if you were to be able to deal extra damage to something because of replacement effect, it would
Yeah, but like,
now.
Lotus Trap specifies pick a unit, choose a unit, double the damage that the
Yeah,
unit
I think
takes.
that's why they're saying that Lotus Trap becomes a little bit more complicated, but everything else will make more sense.
Oh, okay, okay. All right.
Yeah. And I think that that is going to be more prevalent with the fact that the prevent is now a thing, or is now becoming more of a thing.
Right. Okay.
Because I guess that makes sense, because if you were looking at, so let's say something said prevent like 5 damage, right? But you had like Lotus Trap. Based off how they're saying it previously worked, it would mean that you would assign 4 damage. The thing says the thing says prevent, but then Lotus Trap is doubling 0 because
right,
you prevented it, right? But in this case, what's gonna happen is I'm gonna Lotus Trap your thing. I'm gonna go go hit it with something that's a 4 might unit, because it is now on assignment instead of resulting damage. I am assigning 8 damage. You are preventing 5 damage. You still take 3 or something like that.
That makes sense.
I think that's where it's at. I think, yeah, I'm someone who has to read the rules like 14 times before I fully understand it. So to not spend too much time on this, we'll probably make a follow up or something to once we get a better clarity of what this means. But of course, stay tuned to the channel.
That's right.
So far, subscribe. Though, yeah. So far, subscribe, do all the stuff.
All the stuff.
Do all the stuff. Let us know what your thoughts on all of this are. Right. I think all this stuff is cool. I'm always excited for new rules. I'm always excited for new interactions. It takes me a little while to get used to them and learn them, but that's just part of what I enjoy in the card game. So let us know your thoughts. Let us know your thoughts on the bans. Let us know why you're mad that Aurora hasn't been banned yet. And just keep up with us. Let us know in the comments. Moving on to the rules update. This is something that they've talked about before, and it's finally getting clarified, I believe. Because I think this was something that was brought up with the LeBlanc stuff, saying like what is considered a token, what is not considered a token, are the copies being are the copies considered tokens, stuff like that. So I think this is what they're gonna clarify here. Token is no longer a super type. It being a super type made several cards work in problematic ways, and it wasn't entirely intuitive that it should be a super type. Now, regardless of how a token is manipulated, copied, altered, it will maintain its tokenness. Cards similarly cannot become tokens for any reason. Token is the intrinsic category of game objects in the same way the card is. Token game objects cannot lose their token nature by any means, and card game objects cannot become tokens by any means. This is the rule that essentially clarifies that, because before, LeBlanc reflection tokens stopped being tokens the moment that they resolved the copying of another creature. So they were no longer considered tokens.
Okay.
So that's how it worked. I believe that's how it worked previously. Now, those LeBlanc tokens will stay as tokens for the purpose of the card, of the type of card it is. Which makes sense.
Yeah.
I think because it created a weird. The reason this also mattered is because this ruling stopped Azir from being played in LeBlanc decks. Because the yellow Azir that moves tokens alongside with him, people were originally playing that with LeBlanc because they felt like, oh, I can make copies of things and then move them all with Azir. So now my tokens are like really sick. And I can move them with Azir and do Azir's shenanigans. And then they said, no, you actually can't do that because those cards aren't considered tokens anymore after they became copies. They were just direct one-to-one of that card now. And they were no longer tokens. Now this clarifies that they stay tokens. So this is something that they mentioned at the beginning of Unleashed. They were like, this is how it works for now. In Vendetta, we're gonna update it. So good to see that they actually stuck with updating it.
Yeah.
Rules update, and this is a big one because this is something that has been.
Boy.
This one has been talked about. We've discussed it so many times, trying to fully understand how it works. Resource payment optional. The combination of Diana Lunari and the change to how targeted abilities are processed, or triggered, not targeted, how triggered abilities are processed led to players noticing a discrepancy in how resource costs are handled. If an energy or power cost is instructed to be paid and the player has that resource in their rune pool, they do not have the choice to avoid paying it. However, if they do not have that resource in their rune pool, there is nothing that can compel them to generate it. So essentially what it means is, if you have untapped runes and something tells you pay 1, you as a human being can say, no, I don't want to pay it. However, if you have floating energy or floating power because you've generated it in some other way, or you just generated it and said, I'm going to use it later, and then something triggers and says, pay a thing, you had to pay it. It took from that floating energy. That was always the case. So if you had floating energy, you always had to use it when it said something along the lines of pay a thing, because you didn't have a choice to avoid it. However, if they do not have that resource in the rune pool, there's nothing that can compel them to generate it, which is you can't be forced that thing. You can't be forced to tap your runes to generate it. If they don't generate it, the related action is ignored. We have long believed that the latter is an important protection for players, but the former leaves a strange discrepancy between these two cases. For players, the difference between being compelled to spend a resource and to generate one is relatively small, so it feels unintuitive and confusing that a player with unspent or floating energy or power will have a different set of choices than a player without. As such, we're moving to make the payment of energy and power optional in all cases to unify these two scenarios. That is so good. I like that.
Cool.
I like that.
Yeah.
They basically stopped the confusion of, hey, you're actually forced to pay that, which is good.
Yeah.
This change will only affect cards like Diana Lunari, Promising Future, Cursed Sarcophagus, that either instruct the player to pay energy or power, or instruct them to play a card without ignoring all of its costs. Regardless of whether or not a player has energy or power floating, they can choose either not to generate those resources or not spend them. This only applies to energy and power. Any other cost can be compelled to be performed as long as the instructed player has the ability to do so. When a player is instructed to pay a resource, that player may remove that source from their rune pool if it exists there. If they choose not to, the instruction is ignored. So essentially, all it means is your floating energy and your floating power, you no longer have to use it if one of these triggered abilities happens.
But someone can force you to burn 7. I'm just letting you know. You can do that to you.
Somebody can force you to burn 7. There we go. Any thoughts on this? I think it's a relatively small thing, but I think it's a very important thing.
Yeah, I think it's very intuitive. Not that I float a lot, but like, yeah, it never bothered me. But like, it's an intuitive change, so I think it's healthy.
You're going to be floating mana a lot more now
That's fair.
with Jin, so
Yeah.
it's better that now they've
Can't
structured
force
it
it
in
on me,
case
yeah.
in case it ever comes up.
It's my energy.
It's my energy, exactly. All right, so rules update: costs on multiple domain cards. We've aligned that it was strange that signature cards' power cost could be paid with power of any domain. The power cost symbols have the colors of their domains, and players felt intuitively that you should pay for their cost with only power of those domains. In order to align better with player intuition, the power cost rules have been updated for cards of multiple domains. This means you'll have to pay for a signature's power cost with the power of that card's domains. If there is a a symbol on the card's text that can still be paid with power of any domain. A C shorthand on a card with multiple domains is processed as any power of that card's domain.
Darn, there goes me running my Mel signature spell in Akali. Damn it.
Interesting. Okay, so
I
if
didn't. Okay, yeah.
cost could be paid with power of any domain. Power cost symbols have colors of their domains, and players felt intuitively that you should pay for their costs with only power of those domains in order to align. I thought that's. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like that's already how it works. No.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
guess you could have paid it with anything,
I
um,
guess.
but you can only
Have to
run
pay.
2 rune colors, so I don't know where this becomes relevant.
Probably like pre-rifts. If that's
Oh,
all.
sure.
If that's all this. If that's all this meaning. This ruling
Yeah.
is. Then I'd assume probably like pre-rifts or something where you can use multiple. But like
Okay. Yeah.
off the top, I don't.
Yeah.
I
Thanks,
This is
Riot.
this is something that I've never seen come up. I like nowhere. So
Literally.
I don't
Yeah.
know where this kind of came from, but that's interesting. I'd have to dig a little deeper to see what this fully means. But I guess for uh, yeah. So you can just pay with any power of that card's domains. Good to know. Applied costs. There's a class of abilities that apply a cost to an action outside of playing a card. We've seen in cards like Mage Seeker Investigator. These abilities are previously underdefined. Players understood intuitively how they should work, but we wanted to be clear on the precise timing and function of these abilities. Additionally, we gave them a name. The costs applied by these abilities are applied costs. Applied costs have been added. This is a class of abilities that apply a cost to an action outside of playing a card that we've seen in cards like Mage Seeker Investigator. Let me see what
Yeah.
Mage Seeker Investigator does.
Like applied cost sounds like deflect.
Opponents must pay a power for each unit beyond the first to move multiple units to my battlefield at the same time. Okay.
So that's what an applied cost is.
Okay, yeah. So they just made it. They just made it clear. It's okay. They just made it so
they gave it a name.
They gave it a name, and they just like, okay, yeah, we're being clear on when this happens. Okay, cool, good to know. That's crazy because I'm not gonna lie, Mage Seeker Investigator, I've never seen that card be played.
Never. It probably. I mean, I don't think it'll ever get play, but
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Rules update: Death Knell and When I Die alignment. The Death Knell rules received a change in Spiritforge. The Spiritforge rules update to allow them to use information from when its source was on the board. That was a much needed change, but it left other abilities that similarly trigger When I Die to lag behind. In the rules update, we've expanded the rules so that When I Die triggered abilities will be able to use the information from before its source died. Death Knell and When I Die abilities aligned. Okay, so essentially When I Die is
the same thing now.
The same works essentially the same as Death Knell.
Okay.
That's cool. Gone before its time. Some effects will generate a delayed ability that applies or triggers at a specific time or has a certain duration. The question of what happens to those abilities if that time passes or the duration is completed before the delayed ability is generated was a bit of a mystery. Do you perform the action anyway, or is it simply ignored? Wonder no longer. With Vendetta Rules, we've clarified how this should work. If a delayed ability's duration has ended before it was generated, the delayed ability is not generated and any instructions related to it are ignored. Okay. That makes sense. I mean,
what has a delayed ability that like
I'm trying to think off the top of my head what delayed abilities.
like Targon's Peak, because you get the proc. at the end.
Yes, I believe
So if a
so.
delayed ability's duration has ended before it was generated, the delayed ability is not generated. And okay, yeah. So if you miss, all right, we already knew this, but yeah, if you missed the timing, get effed. You missed the
Before the
proc.
labor is not generated. Yeah, I think like hmm. Yeah, I think like yeah, I think a good like imperial decree, I guess. It's when any unit takes damage this turn, kill it. So I
Okay.
guess the point of this would be um essentially in this case, if your turn ended in this case with imperial decree is a little more obvious because it gives you a direct this turn. But
Right.
I guess if that window is no longer there, then it just no longer takes place. Like it's just irrelevant now.
Yeah.
It
So
essentially goes
I guess
away.
they're yeah. So they're saying some players were trying to still get their effects.
It seems like yeah, it seems
Uh,
like some effects are generated deliberately that applies or triggers at a specific time or has a certain duration. The question of what happens to those abilities if that time passes or the duration is completed before the ability is generated was a bit of a mystery. Do you perform the action anyway, or is it simply ignored? Yeah, it seems like I don't know if it was if players were looking to really like take advantage of it, but yeah, it seems like if the duration was done before whatever, yeah, essentially like if its duration was ended before it was generated, the late ability is not generated and any instructions related to it are ignored. So essentially, if a thing says when this happens, this other thing happens. So when X happens, Y happens. If X never happens,
why
the
never
instructions
happens?
for Y can be completely ignored.
Okay. All right.
At least that's my interpretation of it. Event definition. In last several rules updates, we've done our best to define terms that were otherwise underdefined or underexplained, with more instances of replacement effects and replacement effects that are replacing more complex events. We wanted to have a clear definition of what an event is outlined in the rules. An event is a singular moment that results from a game action being performed or from a game action changing state. Okay, I mean, not much to that, I think.
Yeah. Pretty
Yeah.
self-explanatory.
New replacement effects. There are three categories of card text that were previously underdefined. The rules now recognize all three as replacement effects. Abilities that describe how a unit enters or an action to be performed as a unit enters are replacement effects. They replace the unit entering as normal and with the unit entering at the appropriate state. Abilities that instruct a game action to occur as an event happens are replacement effects that replace the stated event with that event and also the game action being performed. Abilities that instruct a player to then banish it or then recycle it are replacement effects that are short for if it would leave the chain before becoming finalized on the chain, that and leaving the chain wasn't instructed by its own execution, perform the specified game action instead. So essentially this is like the fizz thing, right? Like the card will get banned if the card gets defied, it is still recycled. Essentially.
Okay.
They just made it so that yeah, they were, I guess they categorized these things as a replacement effect. Or at least this last thing is more so the fizz thing. These are other examples. But battlefield reuse. This update is specifically to support high level competitive events. Interesting. When those events want a more intense and competitive top cut experience, they may choose to run some or all of their top cut as a best of five. In order to support best of five, we need rules that clarify how you play your fourth and fifth games in a match. Additionally, there were cases where players would draw a game and potentially need to play 4 games in order to complete a best of 3 match. In such a case, we need rules for how they choose those battlefields. In a best of 5 game match, during games 4 and 5, the match players may present a battlefield that has been removed from the game. Players may only reuse a battlefield in this way if they have already presented each of their battlefields at least once during the match, and present a battlefield at most twice in a given match. If no player won a game, the battlefields presented for that game may be reused in a subsequent game. Okay, I mean,
Yeah, best of 5 is a grind fest.
it is. It is a grind fest.
Lock in. Okay.
Just give me an extra battlefield. Not.
Yeah.
Contested removal. Okay, hold on. Contested status is very important to how the rules of Riftbound manage battlefields. Something that the rules didn't state explicitly but assumed implicitly was how contested status is removed from a battlefield if that battlefield isn't conquered and a showdown never occurs. For example, if a unit that has a move trigger moves it to the battlefield and its controller plays flash targeting it, returning it to base before the showdown can open without a rule to remove contested status in the situation, the battlefield is stuck in contested limbo. Interesting. I didn't know that's how that. I thought it was just it's no longer contested.
Yeah.
A natural assumption would be that the contested status is removed when the player who applied it doesn't have any units there. That's what the rules now explicitly state. In a cleanup, remove contested status from each battlefield without units controlled by the player who applied contested to that battlefield and without a showdown or combat ongoing there. If, as a result of the removal of contested status, there are units located at an uncontested battlefield that their controller does not control, their controller applies contested status to that battlefield. Interesting. I guess this means if a result of a removal
affect my ride the wind play.
Okay, so if a result of a contested status, there are if as a result of the contested oh my god, I need to learn how to read. If as a result of the removal of contested status, there are units located at an uncontested battlefield that their controller does not control, their controller applies contested status to that battlefield. So I think that means you move in with a Kali or with a something in your Akali deck.
Sure.
Apply contested status.
Yeah.
I bring in like a Rengar or something. You move things out. It is now no longer contested, but then because I have things, I now apply the contested status. Okay. I guess it just made it work how it's supposed to.
Yeah, you think it's just a clarification. It's not. Like
I think I think it's less of a new rule, and it's just like, hey, this is probably how you guys have been playing it, so this is just that's interesting.
I would be curious because you and I have talked about this a bunch at this point. If because they're in another contested status, if there's no cleanup yet to heal the units.
Actually, maybe in that case, I think Rengar is a bad example for me then, because I think if I were to play Rengar, then it would become a combat showdown, and then that's when the whole healing thing happens, because then there's the combat showdown. But I'm interested to see, as a result of the removal contested status, there are units. If, as a result of the removal of contested status, there are units located at an uncontested battlefield that their controller does not control, their controller applies contested status to that battlefield. Yeah, so I guess it really just means, like, if you move your guys out, the contested status would leave. And then if I somehow end up with people in there, I am now the one to apply the contested status. So I think this clarifies, essentially, if you were to somehow move back in while I have now applied the contested status, I think I would now be considered the attacker.
In a cleanup, remove contested status from each battlefield without units controlled by the player who applied the contest to that battlefield.
Yep, remove contested
Unit
status
that
from each
showdown
battlefield without units controlled by the player who applied.
as a result of the removal.
And without a showdown or combat going on there.
This requires more digging.
Yeah, I'm interested to see, like,
Yeah.
a natural assumption would be the consistent. Okay, so hold on. For example, if a unit that has a move trigger moves it to the battlefield and its controller plays flash targeting it, returning it to base before the. Oh my god. You move in with Stellacorn.
Yeah.
Stellacorn says, when I move, draw a card, right?
Yeah.
You then, in response, play flash.
Or a Kali ability.
Or, like, you can't do a call ability, it's an action. Like, on the chain. On the chain, in response to the move trigger, right?
Yeah.
Because the move trigger has happened. So, like, I believe because she's at the battlefield, you move her to the battlefield, right?
Yeah.
It now has the contested status, but it's technically not a showdown because I believe a showdown can't start until the chain is fully cleared. So if in response to your move trigger, you were to move it back with something else, and then
showdown never happens.
Yeah, I guess if a showdown, like the contest, I guess it doesn't, like, the contested status is just removed. But if I guess if I somehow like responded to you with getting a creature to that battlefield,
or react to the move trigger, because that is an ability.
Yeah, or if I react to the move trigger, like, let's say you go, let's go with this example, right? You have a move trigger, and then you play flash on it to return it back to base before the showdown can start. And then in response to the flash, let's say I ride the wind or something, or I forget which one is reaction speed move or something like that. I move into the battlefield that you were going to go into, right? Well, I believe what happens is when you move out, the contested status goes away, and then I apply the contested status now.
And we're in this limbo state.
And then before, we would be in the limbo state, I guess, where it's contested, but technically it's not there. They've made it so that when you move out, it is now works. It works as we assumed.
So when you move out, you go to cleanup.
There's essentially, so there's always like after certain, I believe it's after chain, there's certain types of cleanups essentially.
Yeah.
In that case, that's when it like everything gets essentially reset or whatever. This wouldn't be the same as like a combat cleanup.
Okay.
Because those are different. There's like, those are different. But I essentially I believe what this means is if you were to go in response to your move trigger, you were to move it back, all it's saying is that battlefield is no longer, not that they'll heal, but it's no longer contested. It's just no longer considered a contested battlefield.
Yeah, so if I like hypothetically went in with a Kali, used an ability or a spell, reaction speed to pull it back, reacting to the move trigger.
Does a Kali have a move trigger? I thought she had an attack trigger.
I mean I can pull it up, but
or is it when she moves, deal the
when
2
I
damage?
move. Yeah, it's when I move. Yeah,
okay,
so she goes in, move trigger, I play a reaction spell that pulls her back.
Mm-hmm.
There is no cleanup.
Basically, I believe my understanding is you move in, the battlefield is in contest, like it's contested, but in order for it to become a showdown, the chain needs to finish. So your move trigger needs to resolve. If for some reason you played something to move it back, all it's clarifying now is that when you move it back, the contested status of the battlefield is gone. Because I guess before there wasn't exactly a rule stating that after that situation the contested status is gone.
Okay.
And then essentially what the second part of it is now, if for some reason I end up with a creature there after you do that, I am now applying the contested status.
Got it. Okay.
That was a long one. That was a weird one.
Yeah.
But hey, it's how we learn. Targeting clarification. For the first time since the Great Big Targeting List was codified in the second Origins rules update, we've added a new disqualification for something being targeted. Interesting. Thankfully, in this case, it should be relatively easy to remember. If a player zone or game object appears only as a restriction or permission for a game action, then it is not a target. This means that Thrill of the Hunt, Here to Help, and similar effects that instruct you to perform an action to a battlefield do not target that battlefield.
Oh, yeah.
The restriction or permission is applied to the resulting action and is not a decision made on finalization. Clarified rule: a player zone or game object isn't a target if it's included in any only as a part of the targeting restriction for another choice, or only as a restriction or permission of a game action. Okay, that's good that they clarified it though. Splitting up, the split damage rules have been clarified, especially the rules that manage what happens if the amount of damage is being split is reduced between choosing targets and when the spell or ability resolves. Clarified rule: if at the resolution of a spell or effect there are more targets than available damage to divide, then the player who controls the effect dealing the damage determines which targets cease being targets. We've had this discussion with Bellowed Breath, I believe.
Yes.
That player, new rule, that player cannot choose to have fewer targets than they have damage to split when choosing new targets, when choosing which targets cease being targets. Interesting. Okay. Now choose to have fewer targets than they have damage to split when choosing. Oh, I guess it means.
Yeah, so
I can't.
If I have 3 units, you have to target all 3 units. You can't choose fewer if you have enough damage. Like if we're using Bell Breath as the example.
I think so. Yeah, the player cannot choose to have fewer targets than they have damage to split when choosing which targets cease being targets. I think, yeah, so basically it just means I still have to choose enough targets to split. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think the first part sort of clarifies Bellow's Breath. I think the new rule is less on Bellow's Breath and more on a card like
Unchecked Power,
like Alpha Strike. Not Unchecked Power, because Unchecked Power is it's a flat AoE, I believe. But like Alpha Strike, where it says like split damage amongst split my might like deal damage.
Choose a friendly unit, it deals damage equal to its might split among enemy units at
There we go. I didn't remember the exact wording, but basically you split the might of the unit you choose amongst units in battlefields. I believe if we're essentially,
you couldn't assign that all to one unit if there were 2 units there based on the new rule.
It seems like it, yeah. The player cannot choose to have fewer targets than they have damage to split when choosing new targets. When choosing which targets cease being targets. So they still have to split all of the damage, I guess, essentially, equally. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Interesting. That is definitely interesting. We have some 2v2 rules. We've added some clarifications for 2v2 specific rules. Firstly, points are shared by teams. This was pretty obvious, but it wasn't stated directly, and there were important clarifications that need to be made. Secondly, battlefields controlled by a teammate during the scoring step of a player's beginning phase are now ineligible to be scored by that player's team during that turn and count towards the final point rule. Clarified. Rule points are shared by a team in 2v2 game mode. Battlefield control is checked during the scoring step. Okay. Controlled by a teammate during the scoring step of a player's beginning phase are now ineligible to be scored by that player's team during that turn and count towards the final point roll. Okay, okay. That makes sense. It just means you can't score on it again, I guess.
The battlefield control is checked during the scoring step is interesting. Does that... Because, like, I thought you controlled the battlefield as long as you had a unit there. But are they saying,
It's
as
just,
long as you...
I believe it's just saying when you're gonna score,
They
the
check for
game
control.
the game checks if you have control. It doesn't change the
Okay.
way control works.
Okay.
Yeah. That's an interesting rule for sure. Yeah, I think like I know I wish I had more insight on the 2v2 stuff because I remember something like this being questioned when I was talking with some of the other guys about like 2v2s. And I didn't know how to help because I haven't really read up fully on like the 2v2 rulings and stuff. So I was like a little confused, but I think this kind of helps kind of make that a little bit more straightforward in terms of in terms of what's considered scored on and what doesn't. So because it seems like if you score, I guess it's like because ineligible to be scored by the player's team during that turn and count towards the final point roll. I guess like that means that if your teammate's controlling it, it now counts towards your final point if it's your turn, if it's your side of the turn, and then you do stuff to get to the final point, from my understanding. But that's interesting. Hopefully I get some more insight on like 2v2 specific stuff as I get more into the format. That way I could get a little bit more insight. But yeah, at this time I'm a little confused on 2v2 specific stuff. Hidden targeting. The wording on hidden targeting restriction wasn't clear if it applied to each targeting decision individually or all of them collectively. We've clarified that you treat each choice individually when applying the hidden targeting restriction. The restriction on targets chosen by hidden spell and play effects is applied to each target separately and individually. Okay.
Yeah, these are all 2v2 specific rules, right?
Yes, I believe
2v2,
so. Yeah,
okay.
2v2 rules clarifications, it seems.
Okay.
Oh no, wait, maybe it's just this. Or yeah, I think these are just the 2v2 stuff.
Okay.
I think this is different because now we have trigger condition and effect. Second here. Okay. The Unleashed update brought some huge changes to how triggered abilities are parsed. Not all of those changes were clear, so we gave a deeper explanation in the Unleashed FAQ. Now the explanation from the FAQ has been reproduced in the core rules document and the rules clarified. In short, trigger abilities are split into two sections. The first section has the triggered condition, any extra conditional statement, the words you may, and the cost within instructions, do X to do Y. Any of those elements besides the trigger condition may or may not appear, but when they appear in the appropriate place in that order, they are not part of the actual triggered ability that goes on the chain. Instead, they represent the conditions, choices, and costs that are made before or as the chain item becomes a finalized item. One item that changed in this section from the previous rules update was the timing of when you make you may or they may choices when they appear as the first part of the effect or of a triggered ability. Previously, those decisions were made when the ability triggered to support the one each turn triggered abilities. We've updated the phrasing for those rules in such a way that allows us to have the decision made on finalization instead. to help build an intuition, you can think about once each turn referring not to the ability triggering once each turn, but you playing the triggered ability on the chain as a finalized chain item once each turn. If it never became a finalized chain item, you haven't done it, so to speak. Trigger condition and effect have been made more clear and given direct examples. Timing for you may or they may, when it appears as the first part of the effect of a triggered ability, has been changed to finalization. So
like in the case of Ravenbloom, for example, she would not get her procs if the spell is countered. Um, it's not like, hey, we did play a spell, so we get the proc. It's like, hey, the thing has to resolve for you to get the proc. Because I feel like that's
Raven. No, so Ravenbloom specifically, you needed to resolve the spell.
Okay.
Always.
Right.
But I think what this is saying is, one item that changed in this section in the previous rules update was the timing of when you make you may and they may choices. When they appear as the first part of the effect of a triggered previously, these decisions were made when the ability triggered to support each once each turn triggered abilities. We've updated the phrasing for these rules in such a way that allows us to have the decision made on finalization instead. To help build the intuition, you can think of once each turn referring not to the ability triggering once each turn, but you playing the triggered ability to the chain as a finalized chain item once each turn. If it never became a finalized chain item, you haven't done it, so to speak. So
yeah, if it didn't resolve, it didn't happen.
Essentially, the finalized, I believe finalization is when it's officially put on the chain.
Right, but like for example, counterspell would prevent that.
If for some reason you're countering you're somehow able to counter like a triggered ability, you're saying?
I meant like if you played like Void Seeker and I defied it, like the Void Seeker never hits the chain.
No, it has. Yeah, no. So this is specifically for like you may like triggered ability specifically. This doesn't. Yeah, this doesn't like. This is like
You may pay 1 to
it's not
bounce.
they are not.
Yeah.
Right, like the Dias stuff.
Right.
Besides the trigger condition may or may not appear, but when they appear in the appropriate place in that order, they are not part of the actual triggered ability that goes on the chain. Instead, they represent conditions, choices, and costs that are made before, as the chain item becomes a finalized item. So essentially, what these are saying is essentially it's like with Dias, it used to be you may pay 1 and bounce a unit. So like you could go, I'm gonna do this. So I'm gonna put this onto the chain, and then and that's why it allowed you to not pay the 1 and still bounce the unit. I believe now it's you have to pay the 1 and you have to bounce the unit, so that even finalizes onto the chain. So
right.
that even goes onto the chain to begin with.
Okay.
I believe that's the big thing for that's what these rules are clarifying. Essentially, you're basically going to you're going to pay the stuff that it's requiring you to for the you may ability to even go on the chain in the first place and finalize.
Got it. So
It's
like Diana.
Yes, you now have to pay the 1.
Yep.
Or you always kind of did, but yeah, you have to pay the 1 to even. Yeah, we got it wrong, but essentially, like you have to pay the 1 before you put it on the chain, essentially.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you pay the 1 and now it goes onto the chain. Before, it used to be you can put it on the chain and choose not to pay the 1 and not do anything.
Right. Yeah, it's like, hey, I'm gonna proc this. Well, you have to pay the cost before you proc. Yeah. Okay.
Now you have to pay the cost before you proc it. Exactly.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Play definitions. We just talked about
boy.
this. Okay.
Yeah, literally.
To reiterate, we recognize that the manifold use of play has been a sore spot. As mentioned in the Unleashed Rules update, there is a major upcoming change to templating and card wording that we believe will make this significantly easier to understand. We recognize how this affects play and will do our best to clarify the confusing points as much as possible in the meantime. In simplest terms, there are 3 uses of play. Play as a game action. When an effect instructs you to play a unit or play a spell, play means put that card or ability on the chain and queue it to be finalized. Here to help reads, you may play a unit to a battlefield you control. Play in triggered abilities. When a trigger condition checks whether a card is played, play means resolve. So that is the student. Lecturing Yordle reads, when you play me, draw a card. Or when you play a spell, I gain +1 or +2, whatever it is on the student. I forget. Playing in any other context when an effect checks whether cards have been played and that effect is anything other than a trigger condition, play means finalized. Battering Ram reads, I cost 1 less for each card you've played this turn to a minimum of 1. So
Those
essentially,
cards
that
played
means
had to resolve.
for a Battering Ram, it does not.
Yes. What?
Remember, finalize simply means going onto the chain.
Okay, so if you're okay.
Yeah. Finalize means going onto the chain. Resolve means you complete the action, like it doesn't get countered or anything. So, okay, I'm glad they very much simplified it a bit. These 3 uses, especially the latter 2, have been clarified in the core rules document. That's good. Any triggered abilities that trigger when cards are played trigger when the act of playing the card has been completed by the resolution of the card. So essentially, student, because it's a triggered ability for when you play a card, it now requires the card to, or it always required the card to resolve. New rule, non-triggered abilities that check cards being played do so by means of referencing whether said cards have been finalized. So that just means they went to the chain or the stack, however you want to call it, but they went to the chain, and whether they resolved or not is not relevant to the information. Essentially how Legion works. Legion doesn't require you to finish resolving the spell. It's just that it went onto the resolution. So non-triggered abilities, just essentially triggered abilities, it has to resolve. Non-triggered abilities, it does not have to.
Got it.
Oh, damage, my damage. Lethal damage was handled by the rules in a bit of a strange way. It was referenced obliquely, I think, in 3 different sections, and only actually named in one of those sections. That made changes to the definition of lethal damage, like an Elder Dragon's passive ability, unclear as to which of those 3 sections it might apply. We clarified within the Unleashed FAQ that all 3 instances are referring to the same concept, and the modification to 1 modifies all of them. Now the core rules document has been updated to include that clarification in the text itself. On the topic of damage, we defined your damage. This is good because we've talked about this before in the context of 2v2s, in the Unleashed FAQ to be damage you marked on units. That definition has now been added to the rules directly. Clarified rule, lethal damage has been unified across the document. Game effects may refer to a player's damage. This means damage marked by that player. That's good, because there was a discussion with Elder Dragon in 2v2s where people weren't sure if Elder Dragon modified the damage dealt by your teammate. Right. We landed on the decision that no, it was strictly your damage. So I'm glad that they're simply agreeing with my beautiful brain and and saying essentially your damage is damage you marked on units. Which I think that's how it was. I think that's how it was supposed to work anyway. It was just at this point, it's just being clarified. Battlefield ability control. This also came up today. Apparently, I'm glad that they're answering all the stuff that we somehow end up talking
Dude, we're
about.
too good. We're too good at this.
We're either too good or we know nothing, and I'm closer to knowing nothing than being too good.
Riot, hire us. Riot, hire us for the design team.
Yeah, battlefield ability control. The rules had some strangeness with control of battlefield abilities. In Unleashed FAQ, we clarified that the player who makes a choice for a triggered ability of a battlefield will be the one who is responsible for that ability and put it on the chain. We've edited the core rules document to reflect that directly. New rule: if an ability of a battlefield indicates that a specific player makes a choice, that player is the ability's controller. They take responsibility for adding it to the chain, if applicable, and make all choices required by that ability. They and only they control the ability, regardless of who controls the battlefield. Okay. So I guess this is for battlefields that say when a thing happens, that player may do this, or can do, or does this. Essentially, yeah, okay. It just gives it more ownership of who actually controls the ability at that time.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, so abandoned hall. Does that still apply to both players?
I think so. Yes.
Okay.
I believe it still applies to both players. This just basically clarifies who controls the ability when it triggers.
Got it. Okay.
Counting targets. We clarified what kinds of targets count and in what situations for effects that check the number of targets a spell has in the Unleashed FAQ, specifically for the purposes of cards like Repulse. That clarification has now been addressed directly in the core rules page. If another spell or ability attempts to reference the number of game objects, players, or zones that a finalized chain item targets, it will include any mistargeted choices, but not any targets that have changed to a non-board zone. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. If they're no longer the board, it doesn't. Those are no longer real parts of the thing, but it is still it will still include anything that's considered a missed target, for the sake of it being uniform. Yeah, it uniform. Yeah. Okay, that makes
Yeah. So
okay.
if I bounce something, it still counts as a target.
Yes, I believe. Yeah, even essentially it would mean like, even if it was to be a missed target, it would still count the missed target. It would still include the missed target in its choices. I'm getting activated. That's funny. I don't know why I like that line. In the Unleashed FAQ, we acknowledge that activate, when it appears on a card text, was underdefined in the rules as of the Vendetta Rules update. We have the technology. New rule: some effects may instruct the player to activate a named triggered ability. To do so, that player checks the condition of all of the specified effects as if they had fulfilled the named part of the condition.
Okay.
Let me read that one more time. Some effects may instruct the player to activate a named trigger ability. To do so, that player checks the condition of all of the specified effects as if they had fulfilled the named part of the condition.
Does this refer to list? Because you name a tag? Or is this referring to like empowered, for example? Like,
Notice that activate when it appears on a card text was underdefined in the rules. Some effects may instruct the player to activate a named triggered ability. To do so, that player checks the condition of all the specified effects as if they had fulfilled the named part of the condition.
oh, is this referring to like you know how like some alt arts just have the name of the effect, but it doesn't
No,
tell you.
I don't know. That I don't think it matters, because the parentheses are just reminder text. That doesn't really
Okay.
affect how the card works. But I need to see like a card with activate in the
Yeah, just
wording.
go to Piltover.
Let me.
Gnosis. When you play a unit, comma gear or activated ability with energy cost of 7 or more, you may exhaust me to ready 2 runes.
Oh
when
no, I
you
think
use
no, I know. I
that.
think it's referring to active, like cards that tell you to activate something. So like,
When
so
you
like,
hold here, activate the conquer
yeah,
effect.
okay.
Activate the
Hmm.
conquer effects of units here.
Okay, so okay. So basically, I
That
guess
player checks.
I guess all it says is that if it's
You just have to
telling
make
you,
sure you fulfilled it.
no, it's as if they had fulfilled that the named part of the condition. So if something tells you, so like if something, so example for Reckoner's Arena, when you hold activate the conquer effects of units here, right? You
Yeah.
hold it and it's telling you activate the conquer effects of your units. When you go to the unit's ability and it says when you conquer, this happens. All it tells you is that you are referring to that, to when you refer to the when you conquer, you refer to it as if you conquered already, like as if you already fulfilled that, essentially.
To do so that player checks the condition of the specified effects as if they
As
had
if they had
fulfilled it.
fulfilled the name
Okay,
part. Yeah.
got it.
Yeah. So basically it's just when you look, when you check the conditional effects of in order for something to activate, this has to happen. When something tells you go activate that guy's ability, um or when it tells you to go activate that triggered ability, you activate the triggered ability by checking the condition of the specified effects as if you already had done them, or as if they were completed, essentially. Okay, that makes sense. That just makes it more intuitive.
Yeah,
um
yeah.
And finally, accelerate. In the Unleashed FAQ, we clarified that accelerate is an ability made up of two parts: an optional additional cost and a delayed replacement effect that is generated when you pay the cost. This has now been reflected in the rules themselves. Paying the accelerate cost generates a delayed replacement effect, even if the unit loses the accelerate keyword during the finalization process. As long as the cost was paid, then unit will still entered ready. Okay.
How would it lose the keyword?
That I don't know.
Yeah, whatever.
I think this is
Yeah,
just if it happens to somehow lose accelerate.
sure.
Um
Yeah,
uh
because I guess you can react to them paying the accelerate cost.
I don't know if you can. Paying the accelerate costs generates a really replacement effect, even if the unit loses accelerate keyword during the finalization
Because
process.
so this is an activated effect.
It's a Paying the accelerate cost generates a delayed effect, delayed replacement effect, even if the unit loses the. Huh.
They probably have a reason they've clarified this. Like there's probably something they foresee. There's some interaction they foresee for like there's a reason they clarified this.
Probably,
I was
yeah.
just saying,
I can't. Yeah,
yeah.
I can't figure out how you would lose accelerate during the finalization process.
No, neither can I. But I was just saying like so. But by reading this, it made me realize like, hey, I can probably react to them saying I'm going to pay the accelerate cost because like it's an additional.
When we because the accelerate is an ability made up of two parts: an optional additional cost and delayed replacement effect that is generated when you pay the cost. I thought it was just part of the casting.
Oh, yeah, I thought it was too, but I mean it is an ability printed on the card. And I think earlier in this document they said something about replacement effects.
Hmm.
Uh,
I think all this means is that um, if for some reason there was something that removed accelerate from the card that you are playing with accelerate, because you already played it, it will still, like, because you already paid the accelerate cost, it will still enter ready. I believe that's all this is saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found the. Yeah, it says abilities that describe how a unit enters. So because it's an ability, you can react to abilities.
Is that what was on this
If
thing?
you could, yeah, I control F for it, and I found the new replacement effects, but it's like abilities that describe how a unit enter or an action to be performed as a unit enters are replacement effects. They replace the unit entering as a normal unit entering in the appropriate state. But so they do call it an ability, and you can reaction speed to abilities. I'm not saying it's a big deal. I just didn't know.
Yeah, I do wonder what that if that changes, like if you can react to it being readied.
At least that's the way I read it. But
Placement effects. These actually, okay. Abilities that describe how a unit enters or an action to be performed as a unit enters are replacement effects. They replace the unit entering as normal with the unit entering in a. Okay, I think that sticks to my point that all this clarifies is that um because accelerate replaces the way that your unit enters, because all accelerate does is, as an additional cost to have, like, it will enter ready,
yeah,
that no matter what happens when the card enters and you somehow lose, if you some or when it gets finalized into the chain, if it somehow was to lose accelerate, it will still enter as ready, because
yeah,
the replacement of hacked art, okay, already replaced the okay, yeah, I don't know why I got so confused there, but okay.
yeah.
And then who knows, maybe I'm still getting it wrong. But anyway, that's it. That's it for all the stuff coming into Vendetta with the patch notes and the ban list. What are your thoughts overall?
Uh, I hate reading. I'm joking. I love reading. But that was a lot. I'm excited for Vendetta. I am so happy they didn't touch the Akali deck at all with bans.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super excited to play Akali this set. Um, I'm glad we got David here to understand rules because I can't do it,
Yeah,
man.
I think I got so much of it wrong. Still, for some, I need to go back and read this like 3 more times or something, because
Guys, I have
off the first reading is like, it's
yeah,
so hard to really like
yeah,
contextualize the initial read.
totally. It's a lot easier when you're doing the stuff.
Yeah.
But guys, I want to know what your biggest rule questions are going into Vendetta. Ask us in the comments. Maybe David will make a short about it. Maybe we'll do a whole video about it. It depends how long
Yeah,
it
I
takes us to
mean,
talk about it.
yeah. I'm definitely down to try and figure out some of your questions going in. Please let us know what any questions you might have on the rules. I'm I'm gonna try and dig into this and try to fully understand what all this means, and we'll try and get any follow-ups on that. Um, Also, let us know what your thoughts are on any of the ban lists. If you're mad that your hate card didn't get banned, let us know what you're thinking.
Yeah, let
Let
us
us
know
know.
what card you were really hoping was gonna get banned.
Yeah,
Why
we're
did they ban Otacon? I hate that card. I hate that
there's
card.
no way they're getting rid of that card, but
Dude, that card, I hate it so much. I have a burning passion. I hate that card.
that's fair.
Oh
That's fair. But yeah,
god.
let us know in the comments. Let us know whatever you guys want to see. Just talk to us, speak with us, please. And as always, subscribe. Keep checking out the channel. We're looking to put out more content as time goes on. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. See you next time.